Sure.
Bim bam, bim 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 bam, bim 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 bam, cheery beery beery bim bam, bim 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 bam, bim 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 bam. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat 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 shalom, Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, bim bam, bim 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 bam. Bim, 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 bam, cheery, beery, beery, bim, bam, bim, 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 bam, bim, 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 bam.
Welcome to Beth-El congregation, to our congregates who are here live. I welcome those who are out there watching us online. At our stream service, I thank our streamer, Mark Sloter, and all our other streamers who so graciously provide this service to our congregation. I'm Bruce Weiner, a past president of the temple, and it is my honor and privilege to have been asked to lead this service in Rabbi Zimmerman's absence this evening. I want to introduce those of us on the bima. First of all, serving in our temple president's place is aptly our president-elect, Robert Simon, and we have our Cantorial Soloist, Angie Friedman. Angie and I go back a long way. It's a pleasure to be on the bima with her as well. I'd like to call up my wife and our temple archivist, Hollis, ask you to turn to page 120 for the blessings for Shabbat and the lighting of the candles.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'hadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with his mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the lights of Shabbat. Thank you, Hollis. And now I'd like to ask our president-elect to come up here and lead us in the Kiddush. And the Kiddush is on page 123. Melech olam, borei pari hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech olam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho, v'yavov ratzon, hinilanu, zikaron l'maaseh bereshit. Ki hu yom tehila lamikroe kodesh zecher l'tzion mitzrayim kivanu varta ve'otanu kidashta mikol amim v'shabbat kodshecha B'ava uvratzon in altanu. Baruch atah Adonai mikadesh hashabbat. Amen. Now turn to page 128 from my Hayom.
Maya Hayom, Shabbat Shalom. Maya Hayom, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.
We can now turn to page 138 for Lachado D. As is our custom, we will chant verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. For that final verse, verse 9, we will stand up, face the rear of the sanctuary to welcome the Sabbath bride.
Lecha dodi likrakala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrakala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Shamur v'zachor b'dibur echad hishmianu, el hamiuchad Adonai echad, u'shemo echad l'shem u'tiferet v'litila. Lecha dodi likrakala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrakala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'neochakim mekor haberacha merosh mikedem nesucha sof ma'aseh b'machshavat chila. Lecha dodi likrakala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrakala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Hitoreri, hitoreri, kiva orech kumi ori uri uri. Shir debat apevri kavod Adonai, alayich nigla. Lecha dodi likrakala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrakala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Boi v'shalom ateret bala, gam b'simcha u'v'tzola tochemune am segula. Boi chala, lecha dodi likrakala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrakala, pene Shabbat nekabela.
You may be seated. We now turn to page 144 for the Hatzi Kaddish. All together, please. Yitkadash,
Yitkadash meraba, ve'amad yivrach irutei, ve'amlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon, u'v'chayetecho beit Yisrael. Bagala, bagala, ubizman kariv, veimeru, amen. Yehesh mirabam vara, le'olam yom be'amaya, yitba arbitrum vidnase, Veitadar vitale vitalal, Shemed Kudasha brichu, Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, Tushbechata v'nechemata, Damiran bi'alma, ve'yimeru. Amen.
Would you all please rise for the Baruch Hu on page 146?
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
Let's read together on the top of page 149. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Wisdom sets the way in which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars, creator of the tide and time. You guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, Hama'ariv Aravim. Ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael,
Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadeta, al kein Adonai Eloheinu b'shokbeinu, uvkumeinu nasiach bechukecha, v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, uv'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed, ki hem chayenu, ve'yorech yameinu, uvahem nege yomam ve'layla, nege yomam ve'layla, ve'ahavatcha al tasir, mimenu le'olamim. Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael, ohev amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kivod Malachuto Le'olam Va'ed. You all may be seated.
Ve'ahaveta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'otecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher Anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Let's read responsively on page 157, middle of the page. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth.
The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love.
From bondage in Egypt we were delivered at Sinai. We bound ourselves to your way.
Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces.
Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. Let us continue to work for the day
when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha neder b'kodesh, nora tehilot osef eleh, nora tehilot osef eleh. Malchutecha ra'uvanecha, bukei hayam lifnei Moshe Miriam, Zelianu ve'amru, Zelianu ve'amru, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed.
Page 162. Yismachu.
Yismachu v'malechutecha, Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat v'korei oneg Shabbat. Yismachu v'malechutecha, Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat v'korei oneg Shabbat. Mekadeshei, Mekadeshei Shvi Shabbat, Kulam Yisraelu, Veitangu mitu v'ka Shabbat, Yismechu v'malechutecha, Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat v'korei oneg Shabbat. V'hashvi'i ratzita bo v'kidashto Shabbat, chemdat yamim, oto kerata Shabbat. Yismechu v'malechutecha, Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat v'korei oneg Shabbat. Zecher l'maseh v'reishit Shabbat. Zecher Ma'aseh Bereshit Shabbat Yismechu v'malechutecha Shomrei 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 Shabbat v'korei Oneg Shabbat.
Together at the top of the next page, we are a people in whom the past endures, in whom the present is inconceivable without moments gone by. The Exodus lasted a moment enduring forever. What happened once upon a time happens all the time. Please rise for the tefillah.
Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi agi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai
Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Oel Hagadol, Hagibor, v'Hanorah, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei HaKol, V'Zoker Hasdei Avot V'Imaot, U'V'Gula V'nei V'neihem, L'man Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Mashiach U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Bezrat Sarah, Ator Givor V'Olam Adonai, Mekayeh HaGol Mekayeh Harim B'Chesed, Mekayeh HaGol V'Rachamim Rabim, Somei Harim U'Me'olim, U'Masvir Asurim, U'Mekayeh U'Matao, Lishenei Afar, Mikamocha Pavurot, Umidom Elah, Melech Memir, Umachayim, U'Matzmiach Yeshua, V'Ne'eman Atanu HaKol, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mekayeh HaKol. HaKadosh v'Shimcha HaKadosh, U'Koshim B'chol Yom V'Haluka Selech, Baruch Atah Adonai, El HaKadosh. In the next few pages, we have readings for a silent Amida where you can pray on your own or whatever thoughts come to your mind, and we'll return to the service at 180. You may remain standing or be seated as you wish.
acceptable to you. Adonai, 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 my rock and my Redeemer.
Beautiful. Thank you, Angie. It's now that time in our service where we direct our attention to those who have been afflicted with pain and suffering and are hopefully in the process of recovering. We turn to page 371 for the Misha Beirach, which we will sing together after I read the list of those who are in pain. Len Anthony, Robert Bugan, Maria Cohn, Brittany Elaine Drake, Charlotte Fiwas, Christopher Long, Katrina Joy Rogers, Neil Tannenhouse, Sarah Tova, William Westerman, Ann Westerman, Darrell Abrams, Judy Kotler Goldberg, Lori Brigman, Alan Skybel, Laika Fruma Bat Bela Rachel, Linnell Bond, Ruth Sellender, Walt Alley, Rosie Katz, Bene Turner, Will Greenman, Amy Wesson, Stanley Weinberg, Abe Factor, Brigitte Altman, Trudy Post, Susie Kuzman, and Susan Schultz. If there are any others you would like to add to that list. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Together. Mishebera avotenu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. I don't get to lead services too very often, and when I was asked to do that, I was very pleased to have that honor. I looked over the parashah for this week's Torah portion, and I thought to myself, good grief, I don't really want to talk about that. So rather than pull out the Torah and read the Torah portion, I'm going to provide you with a little brief Devar Torah based on my childhood experiences. I was brought up in a Roman Catholic community on Long Island. I was one of very few Jews in that community. I'd go to midnight mass with my friends at St. Martha's on Christmas Eve because it was the only act in town and the thing to do. And I played Little League ball on the Knights of Columbus baseball team. We had a small congregation and I went to Hebrew school. I hated it. It was a conservative synagogue and I wasn't fond of the rabbi, who was kind of an old country, who spoke with an accent, and I didn't really relate to him. But despite all that, I was proud to be a Jew. Why was I proud to be a Jew? Because of the Ten Commandments. Even at a young age, I realized that my people introduced ethical monotheism to the world. It was highlighted when I was 11 years old by the Charlton Heston epic, The Ten Commandments, and that further built a bit of pride in myself for being Jewish. Now, I was raised with the fear of God. Now, this was a God that turned Lot's wife into a pillar of salt because she turned around and looked. The God of Sodom and Gomorrah. This is the God that flooded the world because people were sinners. I had a fear that lightning would strike me if I didn't obey the Ten Commandments that God had passed down to our people. My best friend at that time, and my best friend to this day, happens to be a PhD and professor of philosophy and theology at a Catholic school in Ohio. He said, "Goodness, Bruce, you shouldn't fear God. You should love the Lord." Well, my response is, whether you fear God or love God, whatever prompts you to do the right thing, that's okay by me. And that was what led me into my beliefs as a Jew in my life. So the Ten Commandments has great meaning for me then, and it still does today. Some of God's commandments puzzled me, however. And then maybe some 25 years ago, Dennis Prager came to Fort Worth and Beth-El congregation, and he delivered a lecture on the Ten Commandments. I found his views on ethics and moral behavior to be most interesting, and I certainly agreed with what he had to say, but his views on the Ten Commandments really enlightened me, and I'd like to share some of what I learned from that lecture. You know, the first commandment kind of morphs into the second. The first commandment, I am the Lord thy God who brought thee out of Egypt to be thy God. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Certainly morphs into the first one's more of a statement, but the second commandment was, thou shalt have no other gods before thee. Oh, okay, so I thought of the golden calf, but no other gods. I'm certainly not planning to bow down to Baal. I'm not quite sure why God was so sensitive to that issue, but apparently so. But then he said, false gods, as it applied in this commandment, doesn't mean bowing down to idols. I mean, it can. But what is a false god? A false god is when you value something over human decency. One of our false gods that Jews may be known for is education. You know, if it's okay for your child to cheat to get into Harvard or whatever school of great significance you would like your child or grandchild to attend, if it's okay for him to cheat, then education has become a false god. The Nazis weren't idiots, you know. They were well-educated people. Another false god, maybe art, beauty. Do we worship beauty a bit much? Well, to the ancient Greeks, beauty is holy. But to the Jews, holy is beautiful. I like that better. You know, the most cultured people in the world built Auschwitz. Let's talk about great artists like Wagner and Strauss. They were well-known Nazis. How about love? Do we have a loving God, or do we have one that demands a certain level of behavior? I touched on that earlier. One of the items Prager raised that he's brought before groups before. If your dog and a stranger were drowning at the same time, and you could only save one of them, which one would you save? You'd be amazed at the number of people who responded, "My dog, I love my dog. I don't know the stranger. I don't love the stranger." The other one, lo tisa, don't take the Lord's name in vain. Oh my God, there I did it again. I was constantly guilty of that as a child. How about my friends who said, "Jesus Christ," and people would point at them, "You took the Lord's name in vain." And I thought to myself, boy, this God must be very sensitive to be so bothered by statements such as that. In fact, in the commandment, God said, "I will not hold the transgressor guiltless." Those oaths seemed rather benign to me. But then Prager defined what that really meant. If a religious person commits murder, isn't it worse than if an atheist does the same? Why is that? If you keep kosher, but conduct your business in a shady manner, shouldn't you drop the kashrut? And if you wear a kippah, please behave in a moral and ethical way while you're wearing a kippah, because if you don't, you destroy God's reputation. There's just a couple more I'm going to touch on, but I found those the most enlightening. Honor thy father and mother, commandment number 5. Interesting that it doesn't say love. It says love thy neighbor, love the stranger, but here it says honor your parents. You know, there is no perfect parent out there. Do you love them is not the question, but how you act is. Do you honor them for being your parent? And another one, before I conclude, you'll be happy to hear we're concluding, is thou shalt not steal, number 8. Well, this one seems rather obvious, doesn't it? Stealing is a pretty overt act, but in many ways, we justify some of the things we do. And in a way, it's stealing as well. Let's take the example. You want a camera. You know it's a very good camera, but you really want to know all about this camera before you buy it. You walk into a local camera shop where the expert's there to pull out the camera, tell you everything about the camera, show you how it works, but you have no intention from buying the camera from that shopkeeper because you can get it cheaper online. Is that stealing? Yeah. You have stolen the employees, the camera owner's time, the shopkeeper's time, by leading him to believe that you might purchase this camera from him. And then how about the dress shop? Gee, I need a dress. Maybe if I tuck the label in and wear it just once, I can return it. I mean, there's all kinds of ways that we steal, but we justify it. So for me, that little lecture on the Ten Commandments was very enlightening, and I hope that some of this that I have shared has enlightened you. Let's turn to Eleno now on page 586. Would you all please rise?
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'teit gedula leotzer bereshit, shelo asanu ki goyei haratzot, velo samanu k'mishpachot adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסר ארץ ומושב יקרה בשמיים ממעל ושכינתו זו בקווי מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אפס נתנות, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל ועל הארץ מתחת עינות.
Together, for you spread out the heavens and establish the earth. Page 588. Your majestic abode is the heavens above, and your mighty presence is in the loftiest heights. You are our God, there is none else. In truth, you are sovereign without compare, as is written in your Torah. Know then this day, and take it to heart, that Adonai is surely God in the heavens above and on the earth below. You may be seated. Page 593. The light of life is a finite flame. Like the Shabbat candles, life is kindled, it burns, it glows. It is radiant with warmth and beauty. But soon it fades, its substance is consumed, and it is no more. In light we see, in light we are seen. The flames dance, and our life burns down in gutters. There is an end to the flames, we see no more, and are no more seen. Yet we do not despair, for we are more than a memory, slowly fading into the darkness. With our lives we give life. Something of us can never die. We move in the eternal cycle of darkness and death, of light and life. It is that time in our service where we honor those who have preceded us, mentored us, been such significant parts of our life, by remembering them with the Mourner's Kiddush, which we will read shortly on 598. I'd like to read the list of those who have passed on in years past from our congregation. Benjamin Burke, Molly Berkowitz, Irving L. Bach, Lieben Helinsky, Cooper Smith, Bell Covet, Charles Crystal, Paul Divines, Doris Sturman-Deutschen, Ashley Fetterman, Nancy Naomi Frankenthal, Harold Gernsbacher, Regina Gernsbacher, Sam Goldman, Ella Rosenbaum Harris, Ted Krakauer, Gladys Lawrence, Janie Gernsbacher Meyerson, I. William Nussbaum, Irving D. Pruden, Hyman Rabinowitz, Lee Ross, Henry David Schlinger, Nathan Schoenfeld, Louis Shore, James Stack, Walter Stone, Louis Tushin, Gene Watley, and Seaman Rubinson. Will you all please rise to support those whose names we have read in the reading of the Mourner's Kiddush. Page 598. Yiskadal v'yiskadash shemei rabbah v'yalmod divar kirute v'yamlich malkute v'hayekon uv'yamekon uv'hayedekal beis Yisrael v'agol v'zman koriv v'yamaru amen. Yehi shemei rabbah v'rad le'olam le'omam Yisbarak v'yistabak v'yisbawar v'yisraman v'yisnaseh v'yis hadar, v'yis haleh, v'yis halal, shemei kudashah barichu, leila minko birchata v'shirata, tuzbechata v'nekamata, darbiram be'alma v'yamaru, amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemayim, v'yihim ulenu v'yalko Yisroel, v'yamaru, amen. Osei shalom b'rama, hu yaseh shalom, ulenu v'yalko Yisroel, V'yamaru. Amen. Closing song first, and then you all may be seated. Closing song first, and then the Motzi.
Yep. Adon Olam on
Page 625, Adon Olam.
Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'terem kol yitzir nivrach Adon Olam, Li'ed nasa v'chefsa kol, Azai melech shemo nikra Adon Olam, V'acharei kiklot hakol, Levado yimloch nora Adon Olam, V'hu haya, v'hu hoveh, Vehu yeh b'tifara Adon Olam, Vehu echad v'yein sheni, Laham shilo lahachbira Adon Olam, Beli reshit, beli tachlit, V'lo ha'oz v'ha'misra Adon Olam, Vehu eli v'chai goali, V'tzor chadli b'yetzara Adon Olam, Vehunisi umanosli menat kosi beyom bekra adonolam beado afkid ruki beesishan viairan adonolam ve'im ruki gaviati Adonai livelo ira adonolam.
And now I'd ask Linda Hoffman, bless you, Linda, for providing this challah on a weekly basis. I'm going to ask you to lead us in the chmotzi.
And just for those of you who don't already know it, it's already cut, so please stick around to take a piece. Baruch atah Adonai,
Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Shabbat shalom to everybody.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Thank you.